last episode of Season 1 of Perspectives with Jeremiah Stephenson. My name is Jeremiah Stephenson, and I'm your host. Thank you all for listening the last year. We started on January 13th. I released my first episode with Chelsea Hadley, a wonderful Instagram influencer. And then from there, we've had a lot of cool people who've just been able to talk about who they are in their lives. As I was telling my current guest, I don't want to talk about all the things that you do career-wise. I want to make sure we focus on you as a person, because with this show, I want to share the stories that people live so that you, the listener, can take away from that and build on top of other people's stories, so you don't have to go through the same experiences, or so that you can build on top of what other people have done. Because as a human being, I feel like we are all here together and we can learn from each other. But right now, I feel like we're in a time where we don't listen to each other. So giving different people a platform to speak and express their experience in life, I think, God willing, has been helpful for you, the listener. So today we are going to interview me. I'm actually your guest interviewee. Yeah. But we have one of my good friends, Rick Estimond. You are someone I really look up to. You're one of the first people that I met up here in Atlanta that really genuinely gave of themselves in a friendship term. And I really saw that, and I took to that, and I appreciate that. We don't talk to each other all the time because we're always busy and working, and that's totally okay. Yeah. But I appreciate that, and I don't want it to go unnoticed. Like, I definitely see that, and I really cherish this friendship.
Likewise.
So
man,
we have Rick, who is also in the industry, but for first and foremost, above that, a really wonderful friend. He will be interviewing me today. So you can say anything you want to our listeners.
Yeah, man. So I just want to say hi. I feel very honored that you had asked me to interview you. I didn't realize we're wrapping up a whole year of this podcast, and you've asked me to come and interview you. So this is exciting, and I'm glad to get to be a part of this. And honestly, I'm really glad, for an opportunity to get to know you better.
Mm-hmm. True.
Because like you said, you came along. I still remember you first coming into the world.
Yeah. It feels like a new life.
It really does. It's you came along and you're just this young, enthusiastic dude who just genuinely wants to connect with people and learn and grow. And that's why I feel like you and I have been able to form a bond, really easily, because, that's sort of my vibe too. Mm-hmm. And it's been just really great to sort of watch your growth, and see how you first came into the industry and got to know people, and have garnered the respect of everybody in the industry and all that. And and people know you and are friends. So yeah, man. So it's been really cool to see that. Now you're doing a podcast and everything else.
This is the first of whatever's next. I know I have a lot planned for next year.
Yeah.
I'm still fleshing it all out. Some of what is going to happen next year, I was supposed to do this year.
Yeah.
But one of the things, and this is for listeners too, I was doing this podcast was mostly for myself, to prove to myself that I can put myself to something over a long term and hold up my end of it. And as a creative, be able to create something and put it out there.
Yeah.
And just be able to this is a thing I did.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It scares me because I feel very vulnerable in doing this.
Yeah.
Because I'm the person being interviewed.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like I've always been, and I always have said, I am a very open book.
Right.
But
that's true. You are very much.
Yeah. But to be the person sitting in the chair now, it's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Well, that's probably, I want to come back to that.
Okay. Absolutely.
And talk specifically about, this podcast and what it's meant to you, doing the podcast. Mm-hmm. But before we go there, the first question that I want to ask you is, who are you and what is your story?
Damn, I might get teary-eyed. I've had a
this
few
is a
friends.
safe space. It's literally your space.
It is
your
literally
room.
my bedroom.
By the way, listeners, I wish you guys could see Jeremiah's space. He told me before I walked up into here that he literally shifts things around in his room like every few months, which is mind-boggling to me. But if you come in here, and it makes sense what he said. Is like, I'm constantly evolving and shifting and changing, and thus I feel like my space needs to do that too. But when you come in here, you can see the things that are like important to Jeremiah, and the things that he's really into, and it's really cool. So anyway, but yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you. But I feel like that also goes into one of the earlier episodes. One of our earlier guests talked about the room.
Yeah.
And everything. It was good. I like that.
Yeah.
So who am I? What is it? Who is my question?
Right.
Who am I?
And what is your story?
What's your story?
Yeah.
Who am I?
It's a great question. I wish I had come up with it.
I am Jeremiah Xavier Moses Stephenson. To tell my story, we'll start a little bit before I was born. We'll start with my parents. They just graduated college, and they met each other. Again, they knew each other in high school, but they knew of each other. Okay. So they both graduated, moved back to Norfolk, Virginia, I believe. They both went to IC Norcom, the high school there. And it was...
They grew up in Virginia?
Yeah, they grew up in Virginia. Okay. So I was born in Chesapeake, Virginia. That's where most of my family is. Suffolk, Norfolk, Portsmouth, Newport News, that whole area.
Yeah.
My dad went to school to be an engineer. My mom went to school for psychology, came back, met each other at the homecoming game in October. My dad had 3 questions. It was, what was it? It was three. How are you doing? Are you dating anybody? And will you go on a date with me? I think those were the 3 questions. December 25th. I want to say 1989, he proposed to my mom. So like 2 months later. They knew each other for like 2 months, got engaged, got married June 1st, 1991. My brother was born in 1992, and then I came in 1995.
Wow. Now,
before my mom had my older brother, she said she had a vision on the wall, and there were 3 names. There was Joshua, Jeremiah, and Samantha. They're all biblical names. Take that back. No, Joshua, Jeremiah, and Yael.
Okay.
So, and they were all biblical names, people from the Bible. And they named my brother Joshua Zechariah Stephenson. When they got to me, and my dad was like, yo, I'm sick of biblical names. I'm going to name this kid Xavier. And then my mom was like, bet, I'm going to one-up you. We'll put his middle name Menelik. So I was born Xavier Menelik Stephenson.
Oh, wow.
And Xavier, I believe, is the meaning behind that name is bold and bright. Menelik is the son of the King of Solomon, or King Solomon. And I think that meant like wisdom or some sort of thing like that.
Is that literally on your birth certificate?
Not anymore.
Oh.
Not anymore. It was.
Okay.
Xavier Menelik Stephenson was my birth certificate. Like, it was a thing.
Wow.
So by the time I was 12, maybe 10. No, by the time I was just about 10, they were like, I feel like I fucked up. I'm going to go, we need to rename your name. Like, you're supposed to have the name Jeremiah.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah. They had my sister at that point.
Wait, your parents 10 years into your life decided that they
maybe
wanted...
maybe 7, because I remember before the legal change, for a while they had been calling me Jeremiah.
Wow.
So I grew up knowing Xavier, and at a certain point they were like, your name's Jeremiah, because like that's what I saw. I need to hold to it.
Wow.
So when my sister was born, they named her Samantha, and her middle name was Yael. Okay. So you have that Joshua, Jeremiah, Yael. And Yael, like my little sister, is one of the most badass people in the Bible, because she took the tent peg, put it through the motherfucker's head, and was like, here's some more milk. Ooh. So I love my sister. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So they named her Yael with her middle name. And then when I was like 7, they were like, we need to change your name. So that started the legal process. Everybody in my family was kind of like, Jeremiah, why are you trying to change that name's that boy's name? Like, that's messed up. He gonna not know who he is and all that stuff. Like, oh, whatever. So we ended up moving from Jacksonville, Florida, because at some point right after I was born, we moved to Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. My dad worked for the government over there. Then he was like, I want to do something else with the government. We moved up to Brunswick, Georgia. Okay. When we got to Brunswick, that's when we were like, let's finish finalizing the name legally.
How old were you?
I was, I think, 10. I believe I was 10. Okay. So they were like, let's do this. I was like, cool, my name's Jeremiah. I also go by Xavier. I'm a child. Whee!
Wait, so did the name transition happen around the same time that you were leaving Jacksonville and moving to Brunswick?
Yes. That's actually, I've never looked at it like that. Okay. Yeah, it definitely did. It definitely did. Okay. So by the time we got here, it was like the finalization of everything. We went to the courthouse. They were like, whatever, you can do it.
I am fascinated by this. They literally went to the courthouse and changed your name.
I have it somewhere, but like the newspaper, I think there was a newspaper article, an actual official document that had to get notarized of my name change.
Wow.
So the judge looked at me. He was like, your name is Jeremiah Stephenson. You can kind of do whatever you want. Do you want to change your middle name while you're at it at no extra cost? Because I was like, hell yeah, I want to change my name. And Dad was like, is it free? And I was like, the judge was like, cool. And I was like, yay. So at the time, XM radio was a thing. Okay. And I still love the name and the meaning behind Xavier, bold and bright. My mom had a song for me that she would sing. Xavier is bold and bright, and it goes on. And so, God, this is Jesus. This is a lot. Xavier, I was like, I want Xavier, and then I want Moses as a hyphen. Because Moses was one of my favorite people in the Bible because of all the things that he did, becoming a leader and so forth. Right. And also, XM radio was the cool thing at the time.
Xavier Moses.
So when all the legal stuff happened, I was Jeremiah Xavier Moses Stephenson, as I am to this day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I used to write as Jeremiah XM Stephenson.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's who I am. That is who I am. That's a part of my story.
Okay.
I was homeschooled all the way through. That was cool. That a lot of that started with my mom before I was born. She had stayed with a friend of hers while she was engaged, and her friend was homeschooling her son. And she really loved how every morning the son would get up, him and the mom would like do their devotionals. He would go learn piano. Then they go through like their schooling and stuff together. But the thing that stuck out most was the relationship that they had, because my mom growing up had a strained relationship with her father and not the best relationship with her mother because they had separated and so forth. So family was a real thing for her. Mm-hmm. And so that bled into my story. That was why she homeschooled. It wasn't necessarily to like keep us away from people, and it wasn't to like, oh, they telling people lies and stuff in school. Right. It was like, I want to form a relationship with these things that popped out of me that I love.
Yeah. To have a deeper connection. To have a deeper connection. And spend more time with you.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Okay. And to be able to share the things that she learned to us.
Right.
And so growing up, every couple days, we'd have my favorite class, as I used to call life. And it would literally just be her telling stories of things that she grew up and the experiences that she had.
And she would share that and
she would literally just share it. Yeah. And this was while we were still in Jacksonville. So I was from 1 to 10. So from 1 to 10, I'm learning about like this woman's college years, this woman's like marriage years with my dad before I came along, this woman as a child, the things that her family had experienced and things like that. So I was just learning our family history and people and how people function and like the negative things. Cause she was one of the things that I say why I'm super open is because my mom was always open with us. And so it just was like, oh, this is all the crazy things. This is like, she shared all the details. She shared all the details.
Wow.
So we were able to look at people from her point of view where she was hurt, from the outside point of view as being a child just listening to these adults. And then from the point of view of, this person did these things because of something that happened to them, or they did these things because this is how they function, which is okay in most cases, unless it's negatively hurting you. But you get to see how people function out of who they are and who they've become. So that has been instilled in me since a super young age. And now that I'm talking about it, I'm like kind of realizing it. So I was homeschooled all the way through. I learned a lot of stuff. Most recently, because the new Star Wars movie came out, I remember when Star Wars Episode 3 came out, do you know what year that came out?
Episode 3?
3? Yeah. Was that 2007?
I'd have been I'm not totally sure.
2006 or 7?
2000,
so I had to have been at like maybe 12 at the time. Uh-huh. And so before we could watch that movie, we had to go through a whole world history audio cassette tape. And that's like, it was like maybe 15, 20 cassette tapes. And so for those of you who don't know what cassette tapes are, it's like an hour long on each side. So think about 30 hours of, we literally did a college course before we could go see the new Star Wars movie at the age of freaking 8, 9, or 10, 13. I don't know. Whenever the freaking Star Wars 3 came out. So like, I've always been exposed to like all this, like all this stuff. It's crazy. And that's why I feel like I don't, like, now that I'm older, I just look at things and I'm like, well, this is why you do that. Stop being fucking stupid. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, that's not you. That's what you've been fed, and that's what you're living off of. Right. And that's what I feel like a lot of people do. Wow. Anyways, so saw that movie after going through that, like, college course. I started working at the age of 15. I got my first job lifeguarding. One of the things my mom said was, before you graduate high school, you need to pass the lifeguarding course.
How about that?
And then do that.
A black lifeguard.
A black lifeguard. So that's one of the things, that's one of the things I used to say all the time, is I think I was the black lifeguard that could teach your kids how to swim and swim myself. And it's weird because at the age of 15, you're kind of like, life is amazing. Like, this is kind of crazy. I'm doing new stuff. This is, whatever. And, like, looking back on it, it's like, God, like, that's preparing you for, like, who you're going to become. Right. So, lifeguarding, I think I always say, like, people should learn how to lifeguard because it is the job, especially at such a young age, you get to realize how much life actually matters. You're in charge of someone else's life. You are in charge of yourself, rescuing someone if that happens, and how to stop those things from happening. Right. It gives you a very like perceptive, knowledgeable space. So I lifeguarded for 3 or 4 years, taught swim lessons. I helped the swim team just a little bit. I worked at GameStop. At 15, I shouldn't have been. So they fired me after that winter break once they realized how old I was, which I don't know how you didn't know because I gave you all my little information. They fired me and then brought me back on the next winter season when I was 16. Okay. So I stayed there for a little bit. I had done gymnastics as a child. That stopped, I think, when I was 7. My grandfather used to pay for me to do gymnastics, and my parents would be like, he might go to the Olympics.
That explains some of these dance moves I've been seeing, man. Like, how is Jeremiah doing that?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is all the gymnastics from, I think I was 4 to 7. Okay. And then when they're like, let's do a recital, or not the recital, let's start doing team and stuff. And I was like, I can't retain whatever you're going to teach me. I know now I regret that decision because I know now I'm like, oh, I definitely could have. It's just like the fear of having to retain something that I didn't create. It wasn't mine. So why do I have to have that connection to it? Right. Is a deeper thought into that. Right. But I did taught gymnastics when I was 18 because right before I started working at 15, I did parkour and free running. Thank you, Assassin's Creed. That's God, honestly, that's what that did for me. And then I was in a homeschool co-op from 18 till graduate. I was in a homeschool co-op from 15 or 16 until graduation.
Now, what is a homeschool co-op?
A homeschool co-op is a place where it's a group of homeschool families that meet. For us, it was once a week from, I think it was 10:30 until like 12:30 on a Wednesday. Okay. So we do that during the school semester, so that way you can have social interaction with other kids. Gotcha. It's not just you stuck up in your room all the time. And there's a lot of really helpful things that come from it.
Does it rotate, or is it the same family? Like,
oh, it's different. Different? Okay. It's enough families to where you have grades. So it's like from 1st to 12th grade. Okay. That's how many families there are. So in 8th grade, in 9th grade, I had, like, you have classes too. I had digital design, debate, French. I think that year I took French, and then something else. So it's basically school for like half a day. Right. And so we would go to homeschool co-op, do that. By the time I could actually drive, me and some of the guys actually would like link up and stuff. And there's a whole story. Before I was friends with all these guys, I was friends with all these girls that were in the homeschool co-op because I was the only black kid. So I used it to my benefit. Like, I show up and I'm like, oh, sweet people. Because I've never been someone that's like hidden. Like, I'm always like, hey, I'm Jeremiah. Who are you? Let's find out about the world. Let's find out about us. And I got into this group of girls, and I was like the only black kid. So as I'm just like, oh my God, yeah, cool, it's whatever. And like, I'm starting to like girls, and I'm like, this is cool. But because of all the things that I've heard from my mom, I wanted to be very cognizant of what I was doing. So this is one of the big, I guess, life events now that I'm older, looking back on it, that affected me. We had our winter formal. It was my very first winter formal. And I was friends with all these girls, and everybody's like, oh, Jeremiah's pretty cool. It's whatever. And one of the girls liked me. And I did not like her back, but I knew I'm 15. I don't need to be dating because like I'm fucking 15. It's not like, that's not what I need to be focused on. Right. And they didn't understand that aspect of it. I literally told them, I was like, let's go to the homeschool co-op, dance together as friends, and I'll dance with everybody. Because even at that age, I was dancing. It was like, we get to do all that. So one of the girls was like, oh, like you're hurting the girl's feelings that likes you. I'm like, what? I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I just know where I am and what I need to be doing. And like right now, I don't want to date anybody. And like, she hasn't even told me she liked me. I'm hearing it from everybody else, but you can't fucking talk to me yourself. It was a lot of like, oh my God. I remember how frustrating that made me.
Yeah.
So at some point, it was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to go by myself. And I have never been friends with those girls since then. I lost that whole side of it.
To this day?
To this day. Like, I know them and some of their family members, but, like, I'm not, like, we will say hi, hallelujah, amen, thank you, Jesus, and keep stepping.
Because you didn't want to go
I didn't want to go to the dance with this one girl. I wanted to go with her with all the other people as friends, group, but friends, I wasn't trying to...
Like, be there at the dance as her boyfriend.
As her boyfriend.
Okay.
So that night at the dance... It was weird and awkward because there were some people there. They were like, what's going on? All this stuff, whatever. And I'm like, cool. And then that's where I meet all my like really like handful of like super dope, awesome friends that I still have to this day. And like those guys have been brothers to me. I call them my family. And as time went on, my older brother, he had started going to college. I met some of his friends, and those guys are my brothers now. So I have like a really good handful of different people.
Right.
So skip through Brunswick small town bullshit. That's what that was. We get to graduate high school. I want to go to college. I'm not sure what I want to do. Like, I know I want to do something within film, but I'm not sure entirely how to do it. I ended up working, I think I was still teaching gymnastics at the time. And Ben Affleck ended up coming to Brunswick to shoot, what is that movie? Matt Colvin, who was on the show, he's going to be mad at me. He came to shoot Live by Night.
Live by Night.
Live by Night. The one movie that no one fucking likes by him.
Is that the one?
That's the one right after Argo.
Okay.
Because everyone knows The Accountant.
Right.
Just no one knows Live by Night because it was terrible.
Wow. Yeah, I don't remember that movie at all.
Right, no one does.
Yeah.
I only know it because I happen to be in it. You can see a scene, that's a great story, Jesus. But you can see a scene where I'm ducking down behind a bar as the KKK shoots up this old-timey bar. Yeah, right?
I'll have to look that up later.
You should.
Yeah.
I've never seen that movie to this day. I need to, but I was like, I'll see myself in something else. Yeah. So I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I wanted to go to the Dave School down in Orlando, Florida, because it was a 10-month program. It wasn't super, super expensive, but their like graduation rate and getting a job right out of the program was, I think, 75 or 80% at the time. I think it's gone up since then because most of those graduates have gone on to do like Pixar stuff, Marvel stuff, like all that stuff. I got accepted into Full Sail University. That shit was too expensive. I got accepted into SCAD. That shit was too expensive. The fucking community fucking college that just went 4 years where I lived, College of Coastal Georgia, I was 1 point below on my math. And I was like, can't I just take remedial classes? Y'all let me in. And they were like, fuck you, no, take the SAT again. And I was like, fuck you, no. Yeah. I ain't doing that. Because like just the preparation for that, I just remember being so fucking just like the world was on top of me. So ended up not going to any of those. Two of my friends that went to Full Sail who graduated, they both had gotten out and they're like, don't go to Full Sail. It's a waste of fucking money. You've been doing film with us since we were like 13, 14. You literally know more than what you've learned going to that school. And I was like, but I have to do something because I'm in this small place. I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do? Ben Affleck came through town. I was an extra on his set. Started talking to light, sound, grip, PAs. Became friends with some of the PAs. Kept in touch with them. And that's when Spider-Man Homecoming was filming here.
Okay.
And I applied to be an extra for that. Didn't get it. But my boss at the job at the time, I was working at Vermillion Boys Pizza. He was like, you can have a whole week off, go up to Atlanta, be an extra in the movie, all that stuff. Came up here, stayed with a cousin for a little bit. Because I didn't get the extra gig, I just hit the PA up. I walked up, and when I signed in, he was there, and he was like, you're late. And I was like, I'm not supposed to be here. And he was like, well, just hang out. I'll meet with you later. He never did. So I just was on set for a good 7-8 hours, and I just talked to people. I met people, and it was a lot of fun. It was cool to just see how set worked and all the people and such. I ended up meeting this woman that was working with Tammy Smith casting, Ashley Jackson, and she was doing a pilot several months later. So she asked me to be her key PA on that pilot, went back home after the Spider-Man thing, came back up to Atlanta like half a year later, worked on her pilot, went back home, and then I was like, I need to live here. Like, if I'm going to pursue this and I'm getting some type of work, I need to live here.
To be here, yeah.
So I had also gone through a huge point in my life where I was trying to figure out who I was, because I was like, I have all this stuff in me, which I later, like, I know is greatness. I have all this greatness in me, but like, how do I like express it and share it? Like, so I had I still to this day have this mentor and this friend. I don't know how to say mentor or friend because I love him in both ways, and it's such a wonderful relationship that he basically, before I moved up here, he was like, Jeremiah, you need to calm the fuck down because you're literally 21 years old. You ain't done shit. Calm the fuck down and just fucking live.
Right.
And so before I moved up here, I kind of got to that place of like I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing, but I know I'm moving in a direction that is beneficial and healthy for me. Because I just lost my mom at that point, and I was freaking out. And I was just, it's 2016, and I was just like all over the place. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So I ended up coming back up to Atlanta, stayed with some friends. Good Fires, no, half of Good Fires. Yeah, I ended up staying with half of Good Fires and the full band of Royal Oaks. These are the guys I live up with in Ackworth.
Okay.
Ackworth and Canton, Georgia. I don't know which one to say, so I say both all the time.
Way the fuck up there, Georgia.
Way the fuck up, Georgia. Yeah, way the fuck up there, Georgia. They actually lived in Brunswick, so I met them in high school, and we had been keeping in contact and so forth. And they were like, we're moving up to Atlanta. You should come with us. And I was like, I'm trying to move up to Atlanta. I don't have the money for it yet. And so their plans got pushed back. They ended up getting to Atlanta. I came 3 or 4 months later. Lived with them 2 months, but the only reason why I lived with them is because in 2017 I moved back in with my dad, and I'm just like, I'm drinking every other night.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
not
I'm
a good
my
look.
job.
Like,
yeah,
moving back in with your dad after you've been like you've had that freedom.
Looking back on it, yeah, looking back on it, it was so. I was depressed, but I didn't know it. I was trying to function and live in the best way that I knew how. And because my mom passed before I turned 21, I had drinking now. So I could go drink and I could go with my older brother. And I could do all these things and just run around and be a wild, crazy ass kid. But because of how I was brought up, I had to maintain that. Look at me. I know I'm like, everything's great because I'm the best sibling and I'm like the friend that knows how to do everything. I know how to be there for everybody. But I was in a place of just so much like literally thinking about it. It was a place of darkness that I didn't know what to do. And so I just fucking fought for myself, which is, I don't know how to explain it because the same thing happened. I skipped over high school. I was super depressed in high school because it was, even though I knew all these people, I knew all the kids from both high schools, like BHS and GA. I knew all these people, but I still felt this sense of loneliness. Like people didn't hear me. I was there for people, but nobody was here to hear me. Nobody was there to really like care. And then I had like these friends that are wonderful and are brothers, and they do the same thing that I was looking for, but I didn't have that at the time. So I came up here and I was doing stuff to get my name out.
Yeah.
That way I could be seen.
Yeah.
And the only people that reached out back to me were Stillwell Casting, which where I work now, as everyone that does listen know. Because it's such a wonderful, like, small family for me that I've really grown to love them, and I really appreciate them, especially for taking a chance on some homeschool kid that didn't go to college, that was just like showed up at their job one day. I'm like, hey guys, what's up? I'm Jeremiah. So I really appreciated that. I got the job there and I moved up here in June. So since then I've lived here in Atlanta. Was at June 3rd I moved up to Ackworth, 2017. And then I've been here ever since, and it does not feel like it's a little over 3 years now.
Wow.
But it doesn't feel
It
like
doesn't feel like it.
It really doesn't.
Wow.
It feels like an entire lifetime. I think about time a lot more recently, and not because we're going into a new decade, but I've been thinking about time and how there's just certain moments in life that feel separate from everything else.
True that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, that's quite the path.
Yeah. So that's my story. Who I am, I'm still figuring out to this day. I do know one of the things that I am is someone who gives voice to the misrepresented. Because
that's an interesting distinction.
Yeah. The misrepresented. Because being someone that grew up in like the geeky world, and that's definitely more mainstream now, there's still a lot of parts of people that have lifestyles that are very different than what most people call normal.
Right.
And I think there's some truth to what these people live in, but it's definitely something you're like, that's fucking weird, dude. And I'll fucking tell you, but I'll sit down and listen to you because I want to hear what it is. Like, why do you feel these ways?
Right.
Like, yeah, I went to the Furry Con. That's also one of the reasons why I did this podcast.
Because of the Furry Con?
Not because of the Furry Con, but my experience at the Furry Con.
Oh.
I went to the Furry Con in 2017, I think. Or maybe 18. I think it was 2018.
Like that might have been 18 because I remember when you went.
Because we just met in 17. Yeah, so it was 18.
Yeah.
I went to the Furry Con in 18. And it was one of the most inclusive and accepting places I've ever been. And I was like, this is fucking crazy, man. But y'all are fucking weird and make no goddamn sense. And I don't mind saying that. I don't fucking mind saying that because it's just so fucking off. But people feel at home and they feel at peace and they have this sense of community.
Right.
So why am I going to bash it and like just dismiss it entirely as something that's, what's the word I want to use? Something that's just nasty, disgusting, and degradation.
Sure.
Is the word that I'm thinking of, maybe?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, the furry thing is interesting to me because the only time I'd ever like heard about that before you went to the con was that there was like an MTV thing that they did one time, and it was like part of this series that they did about like weird sex fetish
I've heard
stuff.
about that. I've heard about that.
And that was always my view of it. And it's like, oh, okay, people put on costumes and they like
just fuck.
Right.
This is I'm saying the fuck you want.
Or something akin to fucking, because if you got the furry costume on, I guess penetration isn't happening. They make it happen. Well, yeah. But your experience of going to that was just a community of inclusive people that weren't judging each other. Yes. It was like, we're all just getting together and hanging out.
And it was really cool. It was definitely... No, there were people doing all that stuff. I'm not, like, I will never, like, there is a part of the community that's
what it is, right?
But I think that is the smaller portion of the community that has a larger voice than the community that actually lives some of the stuff.
I see. So this is where you're talking about misrepresentation.
Misrepresentation, yes. Is because a lot of the times the people with the loudest voice may be the smallest group.
Sure.
But because of how loud they are, they
come to represent the entire group, right?
Which is good sometimes, and it's bad sometimes. It depends on how you look at it, and then it depends on the situation.
Right.
But from there, it was just something different that, and I've always loved different. I like to say I'm a child of the internet. So like me and the homeschool dudes are like finding weird shit and showing each other's weird shit. And it was like, wow, this is the world. And not for us, like normalcy was, I think that's one of the things that's helped us, is because normalcy for us at the time was this very small space, like our homes and like our little homeschool co-op. But as the internet was becoming a part of our lives, we were just exposed to so much extreme things, I will say, at such a young age. But it being our view of what the outside world is, now that we're adults and we're in the outside world, I feel like we're kind of we're like, oh, this is bullshit, because this isn't like what we expected the grown-up version to be.
Yeah.
It's kind of becoming a superhero and then getting your powers taken away, and you're just kind of like, all right, well, I mean, I still have to be here, so let's make the best of it.
Well, then, would you describe the homeschooling experience? Because I hear a lot of people who will say, "Oh, well, I grew up sheltered." Mm-hmm. I mean, would you describe it that way? Like you were sheltered?
No.
Okay.
Fuck no. And one of the things I say, when I graduated with, I had 2 graduations. Mm-hmm. I had one where it was my homeschool co-op and me and 3 other people. And then there was my graduation where I had 300 other kids. Because I graduated with the class of 2014. I think I graduated in 2014. My diploma's right there. I graduated in that blue folder right there. Yeah, that's my diploma.
Yeah, so we're going to fact check.
Yeah, we're fact checking because I don't know. I don't remember when I graduated.
When did you graduate? You graduated in 2014.
Okay, 2014. Nice. My memory still serves me well. So I graduated in 2014. I had the FPEA, which is the Florida Homeschool Association. That's not all the letters, but...
That's not like any of the letters.
It's none of the letters. Shut up. I just saw the FPEA on the thing.
What does it say? The Florida Parent Educators Association.
Yes, there you go. So... graduated with them at the Gaylord Palm Resorts. Met some really great people that I'm still friends with to this day. But that's also one of the things I loved about the homeschooling. It was like, because you're alone all the time. This is what, during my depression, one of the things that I learned is like, being alone all the time makes me want to make the most out of the time that I'm with people. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So like, I have this really, really good friend in high school who I met on freaking Xbox Live. Me and all my guy friends were playing Call of Duty, and it was like the one girl that was playing Call of Duty, and we all were like, she's fucking cool. Made friends with her, and like for a good couple of years, we were like really close. She would always come to me with stuff. I'd always be like, hey, this is the stuff that I see, like that you could be do better of. This is how I feel. Like we were really good friends, and like that deteriorated. But to see how like a few conversations with a few people on Xbox Live can lead into a yearly friendship, and then going to a graduation for a weekend and meeting 5 people that I'm not in touch with everybody, but like we still know about each other and consistently talk to each other like at least once or twice a year. Like that's wild to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like a lot of people will take that advantage of people. And when I say advantage, they won't take advantage of the opportunity of other people.
Right.
Because that allows me to see other people's lives and other aspects of it. God, everything I say just goes back to me loving people.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff was like during my depression in high school, it was a lot of like fuck people because people don't give a fuck about me.
Wow.
And it was a lot of just like, I'm here, I'm alone. Like no one gives a shit about me. Like it never went to why don't I matter? It's I matter so much, why don't people care?
Oh, wow. Man, that's huge, especially to hear you say that because like you literally just said like I just love people. Mm-hmm. And it would make sense then that for you the isolation that you were experiencing in high school was so hurtful because not only are you being isolated, but also you're a person who wants so badly to be able to connect with people and to feel like, man, I'm out here, I'm trying to like, you know, be friends with people and work, do whatever. And it's like, I'm not feeling that reciprocation. So like, how did you overcome that? What did you do to leave that behind? Or
I think to a point I still struggle with it to this day in a smaller scale, a lot smaller scale than what it used to be. But I don't know. I think it was finding worth within myself because one of the things I remember all throughout high school, because I was the other black person, right? If that makes sense.
So in like, Brunswick, were you like one of very, very few? Like
no, because it's very interracial.
Okay,
like that's what I feel like a lot of people don't realize how interracial it is. Uh-huh. Because you would think it's like, oh, it's Brunswick, Georgia. Like St. Simon's Island's right there. It's not far from Brantley County where everybody's fucking their cousin. Like, it's where all the niggas at. There's a lot of niggas in Brunswick. Like, that's Pod Day City. Like, there's a lot of niggas in Brunswick. I'm okay with that. Hell yeah. I never felt a part of the black community within Brunswick. Being the only black kid that I knew outside of my siblings. In high school, I started meeting other black kids. But I had still known the majority of white kids.
Right.
So at one point in my young sociable life, I remember a lot of white kids being like, "Want to hear a black joke?" And I'm like, I mean, I guess. And they'd be like, those racist, like, black jokes.
Right.
And looking back on it, this is all that they knew. But at the time, I knew, like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, but I also knew you were trying to understand me on the only level that you know.
How, right.
And it's super fucked up.
Uh-huh.
And I was still willing at the time because I was like, people, yay.
Right.
Like, this is the only thing that's in front of me right now. Let's do what we can with it.
Right.
That I was just kind of okay with at the time. And looking back on it, I could have been more like, I should have been more putting my foot down, being like, yeah, that's fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mind getting to know you as a person, but, like, we're people. We're not races.
Right.
Like, we're not black, white. Like, we are, but, like, to that deeper extent, we're still people.
Yeah. It's a tough thing to do as an adult.
I was gonna say, I'm an adult and I still struggle with it
Right.
sometimes.
Right.
Like, it definitely is.
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed means a lot to me as a kid because I was younger and I was always into, like, the old biblical text and stuff like that. So in the first game, you're in Jerusalem and all that stuff. But one of the things to this day I still remember is nothing is true, everything is permitted. That's one of, like, the mottos of the Assassin's Creed thing. And I went through all the games, just, like, doing all the puzzles and stuff. But it also became a thing of, like, learning history on my own. Because it always took place in a historic period.
Right.
I would kind of go and read up on the people and so forth and things like that. But the philosophy behind it, I think, helped me. I need to give credit to Assassin's Creed and Common, his album B. Okay. I think his album B also helped me understand him and Mos Def and Tribe Called Quest, Black Star.
Oh man, those are some of my favorite rappers. Like
the whole album B, I have this saying to this day: be love, be life, be ... Because as human beings, I feel like we are able to be anything that we can and anything that we want to be. But we have allowed other things to attach themselves and other pains and hurts to keep that wound there instead of healing it, to where we can help other people and help ourselves. Because you can't help someone else if you cannot help yourself.
Right on. And
it's super sad to see so many people trying to do things for other people and for other causes, but you see within yourself that you're not at least 75% to where you could help something get to 50. You know what I mean? You're running at 25% when all you need is to work at a 50% like efficiency to help this other thing that you're trying to grow and build to get to 100%.
Right.
Like, anyways, so Common's album B, that just opened my eyes. The first, I used to be as free as the spirits of those who left. I'm talking Malcolm, Coltrane, my man, Yusef, through death, through conception, new life and resurrection. Like, that shit just, like, spoke to me. And I just got goosebumps. Like, like, that shit spoke to me. And one of the things I want to encourage everyone, especially every black person, to go and listen to is the track Yo Yeah off of Black Star. Mos Def and Twib Quilly, where they have, it's yo, yeah, yo, yeah, yeah, yo, yeah, yo. And then the beat comes in, it's like, do, 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 do. It's so good. But they play three samples. There's a sample of a poem. There's a sample of, it said, I think it's three niggas late at night talking about how the world is being messed up and all the things that needs to be done and not do anything about it while we wait for a green light telling us when to go.
Wow.
And like, just that was like, so there's that. So the poem, the green light, and then there's another one. But the poem is black is something to laugh about. Black is something to cry about. Black is a feeling. Black is something else. Black is us, the beautiful people.
Wow.
And so to be exposed to all that, because I will say, I was thinking about this last week, growing up, like doing the homeschool thing, being around a lot of these white homeschooled people, you learn a lot of the white shit.
Right.
So like we went back, I have the original not the original, but I have a reprinted copy of the 1828 Webster's Dictionary. So don't come at me with this Merriam-Webster. Like Merriam-Webster is some fuck shit. Like 1828, like oh my gosh, Webster's Dictionary. That's the real shit. That's like the first American dictionary. Yeah. Don't come out with that Merriam-Webster. And like I would have to look up a word and go through the fucking. That book is thick as fuck.
Hell yeah.
They talk about girls' Instagram asses being thick. The 1828 Webster's Dictionary is thick, my nigga.
Kardashian thick.
Like, yeah. It is thick. But like that's what I grew up in. And like I had nothing to compare that with. I assumed the kids in school were just like learning all these like crazy things. And like looking back on it, it's like, holy shit, like I don't know. I was on some like National Treasure type shit. But how did I get on all that? Depression and understanding who I was. And,
well, I still want to understand, like, because you were in that environment and you were, because I'm always fascinated by other blurs. Yeah. And like how your upbringing shaped you into the person that you are now, and like how do you feel when you look back, sort of growing up in an environment where it was like, well, I was the only person or one of very few people like me, and now here I am. Like, how do you feel about that? Would you have changed the way that things went down, you know, be it the homeschooling, being, you know, sort of the isolation, depression, or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Because here you are, who you are today. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here in your room with all the things that influence you. And like, you know, and these are really important things to you. Yeah. So like, how do you feel about that upbringing and the things that like brought you to the place that you are now?
I can't say I would want anything to change, only because of if the things that happened didn't happen, I wouldn't be here. This is really fucked up for people to hear. But I honestly feel like if my mom didn't pass when she did, I don't know if I'd be here today. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that super fucking sucks to think about.
I mean, so you mean that in terms of like, because I mean, for the things that you are struggling with, yeah, you know, what happened with your mom, that had an effect on the path that that totally shifted things.
Because I think when I had no one else to bounce my ideas off of in such a real, like, basic level way. Because I like to think my mom knew me for who I am. And it's weird because I try and share myself with everybody, but I think everyone knows facets of who I am. And one of the things I've learned over the past couple of years is I compartmentalize things. And I compartmentalize unknowingly. And I've tried not to do that thing. One of the things me and my mentor were talking about recently is like, he's like, you're really good at that. I'm like, well, I'm not trying to. I don't know, like, how else to, instead of being open, how do I not compartmentalize? So I guess even in my compartmentalization, even in my freedom, there's some compartmentalization.
I see that.
Which is weird. And I think it's okay. It's weird. I don't know.
Because you have like because there's lots of different facets of Jeremiah. Yes. That's what I've always been like interested in with you, is that there are lots of different things. And if you look at it, examine you as a person, there's a lot of things going on that may be contradictory. Yes, very much so. Like that you're Christian. Yeah. That, you know, but you kind of like to party and like, you know, whatever. But you're like a fun guy. You like people. You're into comic books and, you know, you're in the entertainment industry, and there's like lots of different things going on. And maybe what happens is that when you have all those different facets, it's like, oh, you can connect with different people via those different
and things. that is definitely one of the ways how I look at it. It definitely is one of the things where it's like, God, this goes to my video gaming, like RPG. It's like, do you have enough charisma to get like this out of this person? You know what I mean? Like, do you have the thing from like 5 maps over there, and if you don't have it with you, this person won't be able to connect with you. Like, you can't get more out of this person. So for me, I guess, and even life, it's kind of RPG like to me, where it's like, what can I do so that I can connect to this person on a different level? Right. Like, and which, I don't know, like, that's something that I struggle with, is like, is that okay? Because I know you don't, at what point am I not doing something for myself than I am for other people? Is like one of the struggles, and it's a tightrope. It's definitely a tightrope.
That's a tough tightrope.
It's a tough tightrope. I feel like in the past I've found I'm 24. I'm still learning. I don't know shit. I really don't know shit. Yeah. But I feel like in the past I've done better at it where I've been able to balance understanding other people and holding true to myself than it is just to open myself and just allow the other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, then that seems like, ultimately, that's your main goal, is trying to help other people. And then through that, there's like catharsis for yourself and growth for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so, what are you thinking right now?
I don't know. We've talked about a lot.
Like, honestly, we haven't even like scratched the surface.
I know. I realized.
I feel like as I like realized we started doing this whole thing, I was like, this could be like a 5-hour long.
I was gonna say, like,
podcast.
as I kept going, I was
There's
like,
so much stuff
I didn't
to
touch
talk
on
about.
that. I didn't touch on that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think feelings. That's one of the things that's on my mind a lot recently. Making sure I stay true to my own. Like, that's honestly, like, I think making sure I stay true to myself in the best way possible and I don't want to say not getting in the way of other people, but staying true to yourself without sacrificing the relationships that you have.
Okay.
I think that's a real thing. Because especially on this podcast, over the last couple episodes, me and several guests have talked a little bit about how you're in this place in life now and it's different. Because, like, for some of the guests that we've had, we're all in like our young 20s. So relationships are still changing for us. Like, people that we thought were like our best friends, those relationships have changed. And that's weird. And like, I won't say it fucks with you, but it's weird. So learning how to like get into this new normal, learning how to trust yourself for everything. Like, you are an adult. Like, as much as you look at my room, like, I do adult shit. Like, and I've had to come to terms with that. Because it'll be like, wow, I did some dope shit today. And then I come home and I look at my room and I'm like, is this a fucking like teenager's room or like a kid's room? Like, what the fuck is this? But like, even learning how to come to terms with that, learning how to come to terms with choices that I have to make, choices that I have made, the relationships that I have, the relationships that I'm trying to procure and keep going. It's a lot of just like, it's a lot, man. And like, it's just a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't really know other than to take what I do know and the things and the experiences of others and then base it upon, like, when I say take other people's experiences and things like that to build off of it, I'll take what someone else has done and depending on my situation, I'll like, if I did this, how do I feel about it? Well, how does that make that person feel? Well, how does that look overall? How will that help me in the future? How does that like not help me in the future? Looking, let's say 20 years from now, looking at the choice that I made now with the information that I have, is this something that thinking back on it, I can say, I'm glad I made that decision for who I was at the time. Not, I'm glad I made that decision because now I know what the difference is.
Yeah.
It's, can I look back on it and be okay with the decision that I made at the time for that time with the things that were given to me.
Oh man, you just hit on something. I was literally just having this kind of a conversation with someone yesterday when it comes to like decision making. And I was thinking to myself, like, when I look back, there's Blue. When I look back, when I look back on a decision, I'll like want to like beat myself up, and I do. And I'll be like, man, why did I do that thing? And then I really think about it, and I'm like, if I had that decision to make again, and I was in that particular situation with those particular circumstances at that time, would I have made any other decision than the one that I did?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I have to sort of like give myself grace because and realize that that's just always, sometimes you're on a train track.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to go where you're going to go.
Absolutely.
And you think that it's like, you know what, like I should have done this, but you weren't going to do that.
You weren't going to do that.
You know, given what happened at that time and what was going on at that time, you were going to do the thing that you did.
Because I think we judge ourselves and others based on the knowledge of everything else that was going on. And the knowledge of the future.
Right.
Like, and which is our present. So like, and that could take that to, I could take so many things into example.
Yeah.
For that. But like, I think if we can make decisions about, if we are okay with the decision that we made now, we can look back on it and say, I know why that version of myself did that.
Right.
And I'm okay with that.
Right.
I think we'd have more peace and grace within ourselves and therefore helping everybody else in our lives.
That is some wise words, young man.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like there's a zillion other things that we can talk to. Like
this is the end of season 1. So every season I'll bring you back. And
right, I guess we'll have to do this and like get a little deeper.
Yeah, each time.
Each time, but this has been really enjoyable.
Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you so much for being vulnerable enough.
No, of course.
To interview me on this episode of the podcast.
Yeah, no doubt. This was a blast, and I'm looking forward to getting to listen to other pods.
Oh yeah, you definitely should. I'm gonna. So for everyone that's listening, I am bringing the show back again at some point next year.
Wonderful.
There's a few projects that I have my hands attached to. Some that I have not started that I should have started earlier this year. But this was the most important thing that I need to do for myself, to show myself and to prove to myself that I can do something and complete it. Well, it was such a long range type thing.
You've done that. Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So do you have like a signing off?
I do,
like a
but
wrap
we have
up
a question before we sign off.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So we have a question from our last guest. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know who our last guest is, you should turn this episode off right now and listen to the last episode, and you'll get to know who it is. Rick, are you ready for this question?
Ready.
So we both have to answer this.
Okay, great.
Generally, the guest has to answer it,
okay,
but
gotcha.
Because it's the last episode, we both have to answer this.
Wonderful.
What advice, wisdom, or inspiration would 5-year-old you give to the you of today?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Do I go first or do you?
You go first.
Okay.
I'm going to put that off.
Okay. Oh, man, that's great. That's a really good question. I think about, like, 5-year-old me thinking about current me all the time.
Yeah.
Me and my brother, Atkins, who's also a person in the industry, we'll do that, like, periodically. And I think it's a healthy practice to like sort of like take stock, and think about, like, because you always think you look at your life through the lens of the person that you were when you were a kid, and sort of the purity of being a child and sort of having these like hopes and dreams and desires for your life. And then when you're an adult, to be able to like evaluate who you are through that prism is really sort of an interesting practice, I think. But for me, to be able to like look at where I am now, and all the things that occurred for me to get to where I am now, a place where I'm happy and really content with my life, and have achieved some level of success and all that. The only like advice I would give myself from back then is to just like not worry so much, just not to like stress things too much, that like that if you sort of like listen to your heart, try to keep pure intentions, do right by people, then even when you sort of like encounter some trying and tricky situations, that you'll find your way through it, and everything's going to be okay. At least that's how it's worked out for me. I've been blessed that way. So yeah, that'd be the thing that I would tell myself. What about you, sir?
Damn. I don't know. I feel like my 5-year-old self would tell me to... I don't know. I feel like my 5-year-old self would be like, hey, you're fucking cool, dude. Like, I want to say calm down, but like, don't calm down, but like, you're cool. Like, you have a lot going for you. And like, I just want to see what happens with that and fucking do it.
Right on.
Like, he wouldn't say fucking, but he'd be like, do it. Like, you're cool. Like, I like to watch you. I think about the people that I saw growing up, like being in their 20s, and like the ideas that I had about them. And I think with that prism, it's like, oh, that person was like doing like the most, and like they maybe not have felt like it, but like to a kid, you're like, you're doing a lot, dude. That's fucking cool.
Right.
So for me, I think, yeah, like keep being cool, keep doing stuff. Like, don't just withdraw, because I feel like I've done that a little bit recently. Don't just withdraw,
man. Share yourself with the world.
Yeah.
The world needs it.
Absolutely. So, Rick, thank you so much for being on this final episode of this season. Thank you for taking the time to interview me
My pleasure.
I'm excited. I feel like we should definitely at least get the three of us talking on some. I want to do a roundtable episode.
We should do that.
I think that'd be.
We should do a roundtable on why Popeyes is terrible. Certainly, if you're not going there for the chicken sandwich.
Yeah, because why go to Popeyes if you're not going for the chicken sandwich?
By the way, this is coming from me, who's pretty much a vegetarian, vegan, whatever. Like, if you're gonna go there and stand in that line, you might as well get the chicken sandwich.
Right, absolutely. I have an experience that's similar to that. You can find me, Jeremiah, on Instagram at Parkour Geek. That is PARKOURG33K. You can find me on YouTube at A Token Steak, and that is ATOKEN''STAKE. You can also find me on Facebook, but if I don't know you, I'm not going to fucking add you. So thank you again. I don't know really how to end this off. This is the end of the season. I thank you all for listening. I love you all. Please love me. Like and share. Look out for the next couple episodes whenever we bring it back. And as always, be love, be life, be.